CCIE Routing Switching version 5 video trainings. Now, let me just introduce myself. I'm Sikandar Kausmonuddin. I'm certified in CCIE Routing Switching and Service Provider. And this is my website. Now, probably in this video trainings, I'm going to cover all the topics which going to be tested in your CCIE Routing Switching exams. So let me just quickly give some overview on what we are going to see in this series. In the complete series will cover the topics, but here I'm going to just explain you what are the topics we are going to learn. So we'll start with some basic information on CCIE exams, or what are the exams we need to have, and then what are the prerequisites for these examinations, and some policies, and then some of the contents, what are the contents covered in the CCIE exams, and then finally some of the basic information on how to set up the lab, what are the prerequisites for setting up the lab, and what are the different alternative options you can look if you don't want to set up the lab. So first let us start up with some information on CCIE exam information. If you want to go for CCIE, you need to pass two mandatory exams. That is, first one is written exam, which is a prerequisite exam for your CCIE lab. So the first thing, you have to go for written exam, and there is no formal prerequisite for CCIE written exam, which means you should not, it is not mandatory that you should be a CCNA, CCNP certified, not compulsory. You can directly write CCIE written exam without any of the CCNA or CCNP certifications. So if you're already certified in any one of these exams, you can use the same Cisco ID to register for your exams, but that's something you can do, but not compulsory. So candidate has to pass this written exam before he actually appears or before he actually book his lab exam. Now the CCIE lab exam is a complete 8 hours exam, and to appear for this exam, the written is mandatory, the 2-hour written exam. Okay, so in this lab exam, you are going to be tested completely on the actual equipment, where you are going to do the complete configuration and also some troubleshooting things. So let's get into more in detail about these examinations. Let us start with first written exam. Now the current code for CCIE written exam is your 400-101, and it's a CCIE routing switching version 5 written exams. And the duration for this examination will be 120 minutes, which you have somewhere around 90 to 110 questions. It's available in English language, and you can register at any authorized Pearson VUE testing center. You can visit the VUE website, and you can locate the nearest possible center to register for these exams. And as of now, the price for this examination is $400 US. Now, if you want to get into some more information, you can click on this link. You can go to this link where you'll find some more detailed information about these examinations. And coming back to the next exam we have, so once you pass your written exam, you will be eligible to book your lab exam. And the duration, since once you pass your written exam, you have to ensure that you make at least one attempt of your CCIE lab exam within 18 months. So this written is valid for the next 18 months of your from the date you write your written exam till your first attempt of the lab exam. Okay, and this 18 months is the validity. Now in case of lab exam, you have 3 different sections. So once you pass your written exam, you are eligible to book your lab exam. It's an 8-hour lab exam which will be tested completely on the real devices on a lab based environment, and the cost for this examination is $1,600 per attempt. It's a web based delivery exam where the complete examination is documented in the base of web program, where you will be accessing all the devices, and it's a computer based exam here. It has complete 3 sections. You have troubleshooting section. Troubleshooting section is more similar to the previous version if you have already idea about the version 4. Now in case of troubleshooting section, a 2 hours exam where you will be tested on some questions. You will be given some scenario, and based on that scenario you have to solve at least 10 plus questions. Probably somewhere around 10 questions will be given to you, and you have to score. You have to ensure that whatever the requirement given to you, let's say there is a computer here is not able to access the other computer, you have some routers in between, and you might be using some different protocols. You have to ensure that these two devices or two routers should be able to ping with each other. So that's something what you will be finding in the troubleshooting section. And in the configuration section, you will be given, it's a find of our exams, where you will be given a step-by-step questions, task by task on each and every technology, some multiple technologies, and you have to configure according to the question and according to the scenario given to you. Okay, so these are the two major exams you have, a troubleshooting section and the configuration section. So where you will be doing majorly as per the requirement, you are doing the configurations based on the scenarios. And troubleshooting is also based on the requirement, whatever is given to you. You just need to ensure that they should work as per the requirement. Now, the complete examination will be based on the web-based delivery program. And if you are aware of the version 4 previous version exams, the major difference between the version 4 to version 5, the contents, there is a change in the contents. Apart from that, in the version 4 you have a troubleshooting section which was tested on the virtual devices, and the configuration section was tested on the real devices. Now this is on the virtual based program. Now the major difference between the version 4 and version 5 is still you have the same T-shoot section and the configuration section. So now both are based on the virtual based environment here. So even your configuration section is tested in your virtual environment, which will be used throughout the exam, which will which supports some more bigger and realistic topologies that can improve the reliability of the test. So that's the main focus here. And apart from that, you have one more section called Diagnostic section, which is added in your new version of the CCIE exam. So let's get into more in detail on this. We have 3 sections. Troubleshooting section, which will be 2 hours or more than that, depends. And the configuration section is 5.5 hours. And the diagnostic section will be 30 minutes. So which means this will be 2 hours and this will be 30 minutes. We can say 30 minutes. So the remaining configuration section will be 5.5 hours, 5 hours, 30 minutes. Now there is one major change in the new version is, like in the version 4, you have a troubleshooting section which will be 2 hours and the configuration section was 6 hours. Now in the troubleshooting section, you can get additional 30 minutes if you want. If you want to extend, let's say I'm working on some questions, so maybe I'm not 100% done, so I'm just done with 80% of the troubleshooting section in the given 2 hours, and I need some extra time, so you can use some extra 30 minutes. You can get some extra 30 minutes for troubleshooting section, which means in the troubleshooting section you have a minimum 2 hours of time. That's something you can utilize, and additionally you can use 30 minutes extra, but that 30 minutes will be directed from your configuration section. So which means the entire duration for the exam will be, if you're taking the 30 minutes, so it will be 2.5 hours for your troubleshooting section and 30 minutes for this diagnostic section, and the 5 hours will be for your configuration section. So if you're not using 30 minutes here, so you can utilize that 30 minutes in the configuration section. But this is a default time, so before you exit you will be prompted whether you want to extend or not. If you say no, in that case you can use those 30 minutes in the configuration section. If you say yes, you can use those 30 minutes in your troubleshooting section. So depending upon the requirement, you can use those 30 minutes either in the troubleshooting or the configuration section. But the complete duration of the lab exam will be 8 hours fixed, and this is also fixed 30 minutes duration here. Now let's try to get into more in detail on what exactly a diagnostic section is going to cover. Now in case of diagnostic section, you don't have access to any device. So which means you're not getting into command line of any of the device like you do in the troubleshooting section. You have to access the devices, and also you do on the configuration section, but here you don't have any device here. So the major intention here is to analyze, correlate, and multiple sources of documentation. So in the diagnostic section, you are tested on the skills of analyzing, correlating multiple sources of documentation, such as you'll be given some email information, email threads, network topology diagrams, some of the console outputs, syslog messages, and even packet captures. So these are the different source outputs which will be given to you, and based on that screenshots or the outputs, you need to figure out some of the things like what is the root cause for the issue. Now, based on the output given to you, either you may be asked to find the root cause of the issue, or you may be asked where the problem exactly is, where the issue is in the diagram, on which router or which interface, something like that. Or it can be asked like, what is the critical piece of information leading to the root cause, identifying the root cause, which means you're identifying the root cause based on what information in the output. Okay, so something like that. Or it can be what piece of information is missing to make a judgment about the root cause. So like these are all different types of questions you will be asked or prompted in the diagnostic section. So you are going to answer them as per the given scenarios or the given screenshots, we can say. But you are not going to access any device in this diagnostic section, and the duration for this examination will be 30 minutes. Now, the next thing we need to know the conditions to pass your CCIE lab exam. In order to pass your CCIE lab exam, there are two major conditions you have to meet before you will be declared as a pass. Now, in that, the first condition is the overall lab exam score. So let's take an example. I'm saying that the overall lab exam score, you have to score overall, let's say there is 80 points you need to get out of 100 points in order to pass your CCIE exam. That is the overall score. And then you also have a minimum score in each and every module. The score achieved in each module should exceed the minimum score. So let's say the minimum scoring in each and every module is 75, or let's make it as 65. Just roughly I'm saying, let's assume that there is a 70 points in each and every module. You got your troubleshooting section, you got your diagnostic section, and you got some configuration section. So the minimum score, let's say if I'm saying 70 points, and the overall score should be overall score should be more than 80 points. So which means let's take an example. I'm getting a score of 85 in the troubleshooting section, 85 points, and maybe I'm getting some 85 points here, and probably on the next section I'm scoring just 60 points. So the overall, if I calculate here, let's say if I'm scoring 100% here, let's say in the diagnostic section, and 60% in the config section. So the overall it will be 85, 100, and then 60. So it's going to be 160, 180, 180, 245. So even though you are scoring above 80 points or 80% as per the overall score, but if you are not scoring a minimum score, if any one of the section has a less than minimum score, in that case you will be declared as a fail. So you have to ensure that you get at least a minimum score more than in each and every section, and the overall also should be more than whatever is given here. So these are the two conditions must match. That is something based on this, the grading, your examination, these are the different conditions you have to it has to be satisfied. Now let me just quickly summarize. In the troubleshooting section you get 120 minutes, optional 30 minutes, independent incidents. Now the incidents or each and every ticket is independent with each other, so it has no relation. You can solve any question in any order, it's up to you. Okay, so again you will be given access to the virtual devices. Okay, so the skills tested majorly into troubleshooting skills will be tested in this section here. And then in case of diagnosis section, there is no optional time here, and the questions are independent with each other, and you don't have access to any of the device in the diagnosis section. And you'll be given some multiple sorts of documentations like emails, diagrams, console messages or syslog messages, those kind of information, or packet capture information. And in case of configuration section, you have something like 5.5 hours, that is 3 hours 30 that is 330 minutes. Optionally, if you are using the 30 minutes here, in that case it will be directed from the configuration section. So each and every question is dependent with each other, so they are all dependent on each other. And again here also you will be accessing some virtual devices in this section as well. Now there are a few other things we'll be covering in this video here. The validity of your examination. Now once you get certified for CCIE, your certification will be valid for the next 2 years. So in order to maintain this active status, you have to write any one of these exams for every 24 months, that is 2 years. So either you have to pass the written exam, or any other lab exam. So let's say I'm done with my CCIE routing switching, let's say this year 2000, in case 2015. In that case this is valid for up to 2017. So if you are passing any other CCIE exam within this period, let's say I have passed my CCIE service pod or any other track in the next year, maybe in 2017 or before this, your validity extend for the next 2 years. So which means the validity is now till 2019, the next 2 years, 2 plus 2, like that. Or if you want to extend the validity, if you're not planning for any other CCIE track, in that case you can write again CCIE routing switching written exam, and that written exam again extend your validity for the next 2 years. Okay, so either you can pass here the existing written exam which you already cleared, or another CCIE. So both are going to extend your CCIE status. Okay, so make sure that you're using the same ID number each time you book your exams, and your certification will be suspended if you or your employer will lose the benefits of the associated expertise status if you don't do that. So you have 1 year grace period or reinstate period where your certification will be referred as inactive, which means you have 2 years of time, and next 1 year will be inactive status. So which means after 3 years you cannot recertify again. So that is your inactive state, we can say. So if you do anything after 3 years, you have to start the overall process again from the basic again. So whenever you do CCIE certification, it is going to extend all the remaining certifications like CCNA, CCNP. So which means you can directly write CCIE written exam and then lab exam without any CCNA, CCNP certifications. Now, if you want to find some more information on this exam policies, you can visit this site, a Cisco site, where you will find all this information like what are the rules and the payment procedures, scheduling and postponing, rescheduling, all those things, the scoring and times. So double booking like this, you cannot book your same track at the same time. You cannot have 2 bookings at the same time. Like let's say I have booked my exam in the coming March. Probably before I finish this exam, I cannot book another exam. Let's say I cannot say that I'll book my exam again in June. Maybe I may not clear. You cannot do that. Once you're finished with this exam, if you have passed this exam, there's no need to book the exams anyway. But even if you fail, once you fail this exam, then only you can book the next exam for the same track. Now, according to the new CCIE exam policies, you can make a first attempt. It should be less than 18 months from the date you write your written exam, within 18 months. And the next attempt, in case if you do not clear, the next attempt should have at least minimum of 30 days gap between your first and the second attempt. And then in case if you don't clear on the second time, then the duration gap will be more than 90 days. So which means you can only book your third attempt exam. So this is, if you fail second time, you can only book your third attempt exam only after 90 days gap. So you cannot do it before that. So this is the exam policy which is required by Cisco. Now the CCIE routing switching version 5 contents, if you talk about the contents or the version 5 blueprint topics, now if you're already aware of the version 4, this is something no more. So in case of version 5, a little bit customized, and also it is given what percentage of topics will be covered in your written exam or in the lab exam. So if you see the major section which will be tested here are layer 2 and layer 3 technologies. You can see it's going to cover 60% of your CCIE routing switching lab exams. Even in the written also it is 55% almost, and then VPN technologies. Now which means this is going to cover 80% of your CCIE lab exam. So which means these are the 3 major topics which you need to have a very good understanding, and then remaining all are also tested, like services 15%, and then infrastructure security, which is tested again 5% of the questions will be tested on that. Now the major enhancement in the new version 5 syllabus, or when you talk about version 4 and 5, is it's more IPv6 now. So you have some more IPv6 to be tested in your CCIE lab exams. Let me just give some overview of each and every section. Now there is a section called Network Principles. It has been added, which includes some basic foundation topics which are required for majorly your CCIE written exam. But these network principle topics will not be covered in your lab exam because there is no much lab questions tested in this from these network principles. If you see here, there is 0% of the questions in the lab exam. But if you are preparing for written exam, you need to go through with those theoretical topics which are covered in the written exam. Now layer 2 technologies. Now in case of layer 2 technologies, it's a complete CCNP switch. If you have from the CCNP knowledge, whatever you have done in the CCNP switch, almost it covers all the topics from the CCNP switch. And then layer 2 technologies, like now the major change in the layer 2 technologies, there is no more frame relay added in the new version. So no frame relay. Instead you will be tested on some PPP HDLC protocols, same as previous versions, and then you will be tested on some PPP OE and then Metro Ethernet WAN connections. So Metro Ethernet WAN connections. So these are the major things. There's no more frame relay, we can say, in the new version of the CCIE blueprint topics. Layer 3 technologies, again mostly you have the same topics what you have, and the ISS is something covered in your CCIE written exams and BGP. So this all comes under IGP category, but the thing is you will be tested more on V4 and V6, so which means you will be running some dual stack environment in your examinations where you will be doing where we'll be implementing some RIP, EHRP, OSPF protocols in both IP version 4 and IP version 6 as well. So, and one more thing, multicasting also comes under this. Multicasting technologies from the version 4 is now included in both layer 2 and layer 3 domains. In VPNs section, if you compare with the old version of version 3, you still have MPLS L3 VPNs, but apart from that you will be tested on some GRE VPNs, and then we'll be implementing some DM VPN topics here, and then IPsec site-to-site VPNs. Not a complete IPsec VPNs, all the types. We'll be getting into some IPsec VPNs using a pre-shared key. We'll be doing that. And Gate VPN, it just covers only the written exam, which generally says just to describe Gate VPN. But practically in the lab exam, you will be tested completely on these 4 major topics of L3 VPNs and L2 VPNs. L2 VPNs is also there. And then GRE, DM VPN and IPsec VPNs. So in the previous version, there is no DM VPN kind of things implemented over there. And then the remaining 3 sections, we have some infrastructure security where we'll be implementing some layer 2 and layer 3 security kind of things on the routers as well as on the switches. And then when it comes to infrastructure services, we'll be doing some layer quality of service, layer 3 quality of service, and some other network services like HSRP, VRRP, GLBP for IP version 4 and IP version 6. And also we'll see some other services like DHCP, those kind of things, NTP protocol like that, which includes some of the system management services like DHCP, as I said. In optimization, we have some other topics like EEM, some other topics EEM, and then NetFlow. These kind of topics comes under the category of network optimizations. And there's no layer 2 quality of service tested in your lab exams. It's something covered only in the written exam only. Now, if I go with a list of topics, this is something what you will find. I got this list of topics here, but probably this is something, in case of version 5, there are some few new topics has been added. The architecture differences like iOS XE and iOS. This is something what covers only in the written exam, like Gate VPN, ISIS, BGP, convergence features, L2 VPNs, again L2 VPNs, MPLS L2 VPNs, and IPv6 network address translations. This is something what covers only in the written exam. And these are all the topics added in the new version of the CCIE written exam and the lab exam. Now these are the topics which will be covered both in the lab and the written exam as well, like DM VPN, IP6 site-to-site VPNs, IPv6 first hop security, and then BFD bidirectional forwarding detection, and some packet capturing, interpreting the packet captures. It will be in the diagnostic section, and then EHRP name mode. This is a new configuration in the EHRP. We'll be getting into that in the IGP sections. And let's come back. There are some topics which has been removed, not really required to discuss. These are some of the topics which has been removed from the version when you compare the version 4, and the topics which has been moved from version 4 to version 5 also. Those topics are like IPv6 multicast, which was there in the older and the new versions. So these are the topics written exam, and again PFR, these topics are only covered in the IP written exam, we can say. Now the last thing we'll discuss about the recommended hardware for your CCIE lab exam preparation. Now first thing we'll see, according to the Cisco, like the complete CCIE lab exam will be tested completely on a 100% virtualized environment, where the exam will not be tested on the real devices again, but it's going to be very near to the real devices. Now the recommended platform by Cisco is either you'll be using some ISR G2 routers, that is 2900, or it can be 1900 series or 3900 series, which comes by default with the 15.iOS versions, the next release after 12.4. So which means you'll be using the latest 15.iOS versions in your CCIE exams. And also switches, also you'll be using some 3560X series switches, which comes with 15.0 SE iOS versions. So these are the other platforms which also supports this iOS based versions. You'll be using some 15.iOS versions. So any other platform which is equivalent, which can run the equivalent 15. Versions as given in this slide, probably you can use any other platforms as well. But these are the recommended platforms or the hardwares from the Cisco. Now if you are planning to set up your own rack, probably you will be using 15.iOS versions. So which means you will be using some ISR G2 routers, either 1900, 2900 series or 3900 series routers with some 15.3 iOS versions. Okay, so if you're using for switching, you'll be using some X series or E series switches, either 3560 or 3750 switches. The listed here you can see. So this is something, a recommended hardware setup, where you can completely test each and every feature. 100%, almost all the features can be tested in this environment. But let's say if you're already having if you're already preparing for version 4 already, or you have your own rack, probably not this one, you can still use the G1 routers, ISR G1 series routers, your 1800, 28 and 3800 series, which do support your 15.iOS versions. But almost you can implement and test almost most of the things by using some 3550, 3560 switches. Okay, so not 100% you can test the features, but almost more than 80% of the things still works on this particular platforms. Again, it's really inexpensive to set up your own rack. That is something most of the time, most of the people do not go with that. But if you are planning for a set up your own rack, these are the possible options you can go with. So alternatives to rack setup, either you can go with some online rack rentals. So if you just Google it, probably you'll find CCIE lab rack rentals. Probably you'll find a lot of rack rental providers online. Probably you can go with online rack rentals. And alternatively, you can use some simulation tools like GNS3 and packet tracer tools, which generally I prefer to use mostly on the simulation tools here. Okay, now one of the drawback with this simulation tools is you may not get 100% tested results like you do on the real devices, but it works most of the time. So I'm not saying that it's not going to work, but it's works most of the time. Sometimes some issues or bugs in the softwares which can lead to not having a proper output, but that's something a little bit rare. That's what I have realized. And whatever the things, so normally what I suggest you to do is you can test most of the things on the simulation tools. That is something what I do, either by using the GNS3 programs or packet tracer programs. And whatever the things you cannot test, that is something you can go for online rack rentals. And mostly 80% of the things which can be tested on the simulation tools, and whatever the remaining 20% of the things which cannot be tested on the simulation tools, you can go with some online rack rentals. So that's something what I have done. You can do, that is something what I recommend, or you can set up your own rack. So these are the alternative options which we'll be using. So mostly in my scenarios, in my video trainings here, I'll be using mostly the simulation tools. for testing most of the labs, either using a GNS3 or a packet tracer programs, where I'm going to integrate the iOS and all those things, and I'm going to show you the labs, and whatever the things we cannot test. I have my own rack setup. Probably you can either I'll go with a rack setup. I have some 3550, 3560 switches. I'll be using some racks in most of the switching concepts here. So probably this is something, an introduction to the complete CCIE. So we have seen some of the topics here. So these are all the things what we have discussed here. Probably in the next videos from onwards, I'll be getting into some. Now the way we go with the topics is, first we'll be starting with some layer 2 security topics. So in that layer 2 security, we'll be covering mostly all the layer 2 technologies in one part, and then we'll be getting into some layer 3 technologies with some IGP protocols, and then later on we go with the basic BGP, and then we'll be getting into some VPN. That is the next section we'll be covering. After that, with some MPLS, what is VPN, and different types of VPN options like MPLS VPNs, TM VPN, and then so on, GRE VPNs, advantages and disadvantages of this, and then we'll see some IPsec VPNs. Now these are all things we'll be covering within the scope of CCIE Routing Switching version 5 exam topics. And then we'll be getting into some of the other topics like security, services, and then finally some optimization kind of things. So this will be the order of the way we are going with our training program. This is how we'll go one by one.